Welcome to online lecture series for software engineering KCS 601. Myself Dr. Inderjit Kaur, Associate Professor in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering, Ajay Kumar Garg Engineering College, Ghaziabad. In the previous lecture, we have discussed about the static testing, that was a testing technique executing without executing the code, we were being testing it to find the errors. Now, a method of static testing, that is code inspection, will be discussed in this lecture, and compliance with design and coding standards. So, as we know, there are two kinds of test approaches. One of them is static testing, that we have discussed in the previous lecture, and the second type is the dynamic testing. Static testing says कि it is testing without executing the software, everything like the SRS, like the code, it is kept on the table, the various test cases, everything is kept on the table and being tested कि what are the chances of errors. So, without executing the software, a component or the entire system, it is tested at the specification or at the implementation level. So, this kind of testing, it detects the defects, that means it detects where are the deviations from the standards that will lead us come to know where we are lacking. So, it will tell us the lacking requirements, what are the flaws in design and how my code is unmaintainable and it is conflicting the interface specifications. Then moving on to the dynamic testing says that my software will be tested by executing the software from either different components or the entire system, it will be tested. So, it finds the defects by checking the output from the expected values. So, will there be deviation? That means dynamic testing will tell us. So, these both techniques, they are complementary to each other and they have the ability to detect the defects as quickly as possible and they are very effective. Then, before going to the lecture, we will define some terminologies that we are going to use in this lecture. The first term is defect. How we can define this defect? Defect is the variation of software application results from its expected outcomes that we have proposed during the requirement stage, during the SRS stage. So, this defect, it can occur during design stage, it can occur during the implementation stage, during testing, during maintenance phases of the software. During at any kind of phases of the software, this defect can occur. Then, how we define these defects? They are measured in terms of KLOC. It is a measure of quality, we can say, in the test phase. Then, next parameter is defect ratios. This defect ratio, they are giving us the inner view for measuring the quality of the software, that means the quality reviews, they are being checked using this defect ratio. Then the next parameter is defining the development time ratio. As the name suggests, development time. So, they are being defined as the detailed design versus coding time. Detailed design versus the coding time, that will be known as the development time ratio. Then we are going to define the appraisal upon failure ratio. It is defined as the time spent in reviews versus time spent in test. Review is one of the static testing technique and testing means the entire test time that we are going to spend, that will tell us the failure ratio. Then, now we are going to define the rework. The rework, it is the expense of detecting and correcting the faults as well as detecting and correcting the faults at the time of regression issues. Means once we have modified the code and then we are detecting and correcting the faults in that modification also, that effort and time, that is being counted as rework. So, effort and time if we calculate, that will be calculated in work plus rework that we are going to do in the entire phases of my SDLC. As we know, the phases of SDLC, they start with requirement, then we move on to the design phase, then we proceed for the detailed design phase, then we start the coding testing phase for unit testing, for integration testing, for system testing and so on. So, when we are proceeding for these different phases, at every phase if there is a change, if there is a change in the user acceptance testing, that tells clearly कि we have to do the rework from all the stages. If there is a chances of, if there are suggestions at the time of user acceptance testing, that clearly tells us कि we have to do the rework, we have to do the changes in our requirement. As per change in requirement, we will be dealing with the change in preliminary design. So, if the design gets changed, the detailed design documents will also be changed. If the detailed design document is getting changed, that means there will be a change in coding that leads to further change in unit testing. So, at every phase rework will take place. So, the amount of rework during all the stages has been captured. At the requirement stage, it is shown as the 1%, during the preliminary design it is 4%, detailed design says the rework will goes to 8% and the coding and unit testing it will increase by 12% and integration and system testing it will increase by, the effort will be increased by 19%. So, the total rework it will comes out to be 44%. Our target is to reduce this rework so that we can cut down the project time and expenses further. So, how we proceed, that we will discuss here. Then this rework can be reduced by doing effort in doing the code inspection technique, that this technique that we are going to discuss in this lecture. Code inspection technique, it is defined as the kind of static testing. The aim of doing this static testing is review the code and examine it for further defects. If there are coming defects, correct them. We can say this code inspection, it is a formal type of review that is based on some defined rules and checklist. In the last lecture we have discussed there are 5 to 6 methods for doing this reviews. One of them is our formal type of review, that is our code inspection technique. So, this method it involves the peer examination of the code. We know that every change will be done in my coding part. So, we have to examine that code very deeply. So, peer examination will be done here. It helps in reducing the ratio of defect multiplication and they are being avoided at the later stages of my error detection. As we know that if the error gets detected in the earlier stages, so it reduces my product cost. If it is carrying in my stages and it is detected in the last stage, then the testing cost will be increased, that will entire increase in my software product cost. So, this code inspection it is done for all kind of products during the development process. That means, it can be done in the use cases, it can be done in the SRS, it is done in the detailed design, it is done in the coding, documentation and so on. Now, the next thing that comes, who are the participants in this code inspection technique? Since it is a kind of static technique, So, the moderator, author, scribe, the reviewer, that are the participants of my static testing, they all will participate in this. Moderator means the review leader, and it performs the entry check, and the task is to arrange the meeting, and then moderator is going to lead the prospective discussions, and he is going to record every gathered information. Then the task of author. Author, it majorly focuses on the unclear ideas and it recognizes the found defects. The primary goal, it should be learned to increase the quality of the software. Then scribe. Scribe is a person to do logging of the defects found during the review. Then the reviewer. Reviewer is also known as the checkers or the inspectors, and before a meeting starts, the task of reviewer is to inspect any material if it is found for defects. Then this is the stages for doing this code inspection. There are 5 stages. The first stage is my planning stage, that tells ki how the product planning should go on. Then the second stage is overview meeting and preparation stage. The third stage is to have the inspection meeting. The fourth stage is to do the rework, and the last stage is to do the follow up. If there is a rework, then again take the follow up, and here is my verified product. Let us discuss these stages one by one. The first stage, planning. As the name suggests, this is the activity that has to be undertaken during the inspection by the moderator. As a moderator, he will decide the meeting agenda and all the points, and moderator, reader, recorder, author, they will be the key members of this planning team, and all the related documents, they are to be provided by the author as well as the moderator in this inspection team during the meeting. Then second phase is to conduct an overview meeting and the preparation stage. This is how the meeting is going on. The objective of this overview meeting, it is to communicate the background information about the product that is under review. The aim is to know the defects of the product as early as possible. Here the author will provide the information, that is just an overview and code of the product, to the team members present here, and the producer, he will give a familiarizations about the product. Then it determines the appearance of a specific occurring defect, and the team members, they will decide which inspection approach or method to be followed, such as viewpoints, product concentration, etc., so that to find the faults during the code inspection. Then the third stage, that is to conduct the inspection meeting. During this stage, the reader, it goes over the product, and the inspector, it is going to find the defects. Now the code is being inspected following some rules and checklist, and it uses the entry and exit criteria. What are these entry and exit criteria? We will discuss it. Then the fourth phase is rework. Rework, that is whatever changes they are being suggested in the earlier 3 phases, that has to be incorporated by the moderator, because whatever outcome inspection is coming, that changes are to be done during this meeting to the product, that is known as, that changes, they are known as rework. And the last is the follow up. As a result, the author reviews the suggested changes, and a formal follow up process, that is being used to do the corrective action completeness in time. This is, we can see the example of doing the code inspection with 3 reviewers. This is the defect description being noted. Reviewer 1 is giving the review, reviewer 2, reviewer 3, and so on, and with respect to the product size, the total defects for A and B, they are to be calculated. Then what are the inspection metrics, on which basis we are calculating the defects and then we are correcting them. So, let us define them. First is we have to find the number of major and minor defects. Then second is we should know about the size of artifacts, means the size of pages or the lines of code in my product. The third is to find the rate of review. Then the next is defect detection rate. Defect detection rate is the number of major defects that are to be found per review in an hour. Then to find the total number of defects, that is calculated as A plus B minus C, where A is the defects by inspector 1, B is the defects by inspector 2 and C they are the common defects. Then calculation of defect density. Defect density, it is defined as total defects found divided by the size, where size is the LOC, lines of code. Then the next parameter, estimated total defects, that is found as A cross B divided by C. And then the yield. Yield means the defect removal efficiency. It is also known as DRE, that is total defects found upon estimated total defects into cross, that is the percentage of total defects divided by estimated total defects. Let us take one example. Suppose we have 3 modules that are to be integrated in my software. Every module has some number of bugs discovered in the table given. Then the lines of code for every module is also given. Now we have to calculate the defect density. As we know, defect density, it is calculated as the defect count divided by the size of code. So, the defect count for the 3 modules, they are given to us 10 bugs, 20 bugs and 10 bugs for all the modules, and lines of codes are also being given to us. So, defect count total for all the 3 modules, it comes out to be 10 plus 20 plus 10 divided by 1000 plus 1500 plus 500. So, it comes out to be 40 upon 3000, that is 13.33 bugs upon KLOC. If I write only LOC, it will be 0.1333. This is how we calculate the defect density. Next, this code inspection, it is of 2 types. One of them is the code review and the second is doing peer review. Code review, that is the method of examining in which a piece or a block of code is treated as defect and we have to correct it. This code review, it is also known as the individual reviewer form and it is used during the preparation stage. Then the second method, that is known as the peer review. This peer review, it is called as the log form. The different log forms, they are being generated during this and the output in the form of defects is known to us during meeting stage. This peer review, it ensures the structured review process with the product checklist and reports. The entry criteria means we are setting a minimal set of prerequisites to start the process of testing. Then this prerequisite means we are talking about the software installation and hardware configuration. Then exit criteria. Exit criteria means we are ensuring that all the necessary tasks, they are being completed in order to close the project. Suppose we have handled all the kinds of defects and now we want to close the project. That means the moderator should define the entry criteria and the exit criteria during the planning that we have discussed as the first process, first phase of my code inspection. Then this exit criteria, it defines the execution of all the test plans and coverage of the requirements. Then what are the benefits for doing this code inspection? Since it is a part of doing static testing, we are not executing the code and we are just reviewing the code either by code review or doing peer review and finding the faults in our software. So, the first benefit is developing new perspective, that is to develop a clear understanding of the new issues that can arise and how they will be taken care. Then the second benefit for doing this code inspection, it is the knowledge sharing, that is sharing the knowledge for all the design specifications, all the specific software objects that we are going to define, or what are the defect detection approaches that we will be using, that is the second benefit. Then the third is we can do the early fault finding here, that is prior detection of fault is possible during the design and requirement phase only, that further reduces the cost of our software, because now these faults they are not being carried out till testing phase, they are early detected. So, that is the benefit again. Then coming to the code inspection pros and cons. The first and foremost advantage for doing this code inspection is it improves the overall product quality. The quality of entire software product is being improved here. Then it finds and removes the defective efficiently very quickly, means all the defects they are being found and they are being corrected in a very quick manner, in a very efficient manner. Then we learn from the previous defects and they are being prevented in the future. Then disadvantage, as it is having 5 to 6 phases, so it is a very slow process and every phase we require some time and planning. So, that again is the drawback, that is it requires extra time and planning while doing this code inspection method. Then we can say that there is a sample code inspection. This code inspection by the industry people, by the various software tester, it is being done in the JWP class, that is using Office help, or this code inspection checklist is also prepared. Then there are different Java code conventions being used, then there is a individual log form being generated, and then we are going to derive an overall log form. This is a sample template being shared for the Office help. Here we have sample code being written and that is being debugged line by line, and the code inspection checklist is being prepared, and what are the missing classes, functions or variables, they are being written in the form of comments. So, at line number 32 here we find an error that says ki the literal string should be made constant. Then at line number again 32, the by default constructor it says that the variables they are not being checked. Then again at the line number 62 we have some another error ki that says is method called variables they are not being checked. Since like this it was just one module being checked by using Office help, there are various other tools also being available for doing this code inspection, and that gives us line by line checking, so that the code is being inspected and the expected errors they are being handled very quick and efficient manner. So, this was all about the code inspection technique, that is one of the kind of a method for doing the static testing. Thank you.